There are plenty of books for learning popular languages like French or Spanish, Mandarin, languages with large numbers of speakers. But if you're learning a less popular language, Czech, Icelandic, whatever, it can be more difficult to find learning materials. Now with Czech you can probably find 6, 8, 10 textbooks out there which focus on getting you to a upper basic level. It's not a very wide selection, so if you don't find one that suits you personally, you have a bit of a problem. But at least there's stuff there. But once you get beyond the basic level into an intermediate level, it can be much more difficult because there really aren't very many books, maybe one or two, and I don't particularly like those that are there. And when you're getting into advanced Czech, there's nothing. Of course, by then you'll be diving into real materials just in Czech, such as reading newspapers each day and so on. But even so, it's very nice to be able to have a textbook to dip into occasionally, to instruct you on things that you won't actually just stumble across in your daily reading of books or newspapers. And this lack of a good textbook worried me for a while, and then I hit on a good idea, I think, and it might be useful, the same idea, for people learning other languages apart from Czech. What I realised is there are actually hundreds of books that go in the opposite direction. Because English is such a popular language worldwide, there are so many books for teaching Czechs how to learn English going in the opposite direction. And I've found that if you select amongst these carefully, you can actually find them that work very well in both directions. And I have quite a few of these books now. Here's some examples. This one, English, 15,000 words in 150 themes. And it has parallel texts. For example, the 150 themes in the table of contents at the beginning here, we see we've got human beings, the family, eating, drinking, healthcare, and so on. And you can see the titles in Czech on one side and English on the other. And if we turn now, here's a whole section on poverty, and another on crime and violence. And for looking at the poverty one, you see parallel phrases, parallel words. There's absolutely no reason why this should only be used in the direction it was intended. It works beautifully in the opposite direction, and I used this quite extensively about 2 summers ago, sitting out on my terrace, and spent many pleasant evenings reading through this book with a glass of wine, and I learned a lot from it. Not so much a textbook, but it very much helps you gaining vocabulary for specific themes. Here's another one. It's for translators who are translating into English, and this is one that I bought more recently than the one I just showed you, because it has some very detailed terms, such as mathematical terminology, so that we can see how to say things like something is less than or greater than. I don't know if this is clear here, sorry. Or it seems to be having difficulty focusing, but mathematical concepts such as A is to B as C is to D, and what the equivalent is. And it has things about chemistry and all from Latin into Czech, all sorts of fairly technical terminology, and I find this is very handy for dipping in. Very recently, I've bought this great book on Czech to English business correspondence, which is for formal Czech, very formal Czech, which I only come across occasionally when I get letters from the gas company and so on, but I'd like to know more about it. And it has literally hundreds of sample business letters in Czech on one side and the very same letter in formal English on the other side. It's a beautiful book, and I only bought this in the last few weeks, but I've been really enjoying going, even though it's quite dry material, just to learn the very polite ways that businesses refer to certain things has been very interesting. Lots of good material in there, and it works beautifully again in both directions. And the final example, this was one I bought actually a few years ago, a couple of years ago I guess, and it is only at an intermediate level, but it's for high school graduates who have specialised in an examination for English, and it's called Real English, and Barrister and Principal is the publisher. Their website is barrister.cz. I don't know if you can read that, but it's written by I think she's an American called Ann Johnson, and it has 20 or 30 short, almost like diary entries, her thoughts on various topics. And as I read through this, I would read one topic a day. There were only about 3 pages on each one, and it's only at intermediate level, not too complicated. So for example, a day in the life, here she would talk about having a daily schedule. And you see here's the English text, and there's the equivalent in Czech. Now I would use this just like a student learning English would. I'd go through the text, highlight the words that troubled me, and sometimes I would find the direct equivalent. So rozvrh is obviously schedule, and those words that were particularly troubling, I'd actually look them up later in a dictionary. Excellent to dive into native materials like this as soon as you can. Gets you used to dealing with uncertainty, dealing with a larger body of text, and they're actually not as dry and dull as textbooks. Excellent, excellent, excellent. There are many, many books like this. So the overall message here is, if you're starving for language materials from your own language to the target language, why not have a look at ones that go in the opposite direction? You might find that some of them work perfectly in both directions.